You've got more chance of having triplets, Larissa, than you have of winning Taslotto.
Hi everyone and welcome back to No Place Like Home. I'm your host Larissa and today I am joined by Josephine. Welcome, Jo.
Thanks, Larissa.
The topic of today's show is your story, as we always like to start out with all of our guests. But I think you're incredibly unique, Jo, because we're talking about you raising triplets, but you raising triplets already having two children.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So I can feel like the audience has taken a collective first of all, let's talk a bit about your background, work, family, all
Sure.
of those sorts of things.
Sure. So I trained as a nurse in the old days in the hospital system, and then moved into the tertiary sector. And so my background, I guess, was emergency nursing. And then I went on to have two boys, Will, who was born in 1990, and Nick, who was born in 93. And
Wow.
shortly after I had Nick, I started a master's degree in sociology and midwifery,
As you do.
as you do. And then we decided that it would be a great time to have that third baby
I'm feeling like there's an air of,
for the PhD.
oh my.
So anyway, we went ahead and had a third pregnancy, which, as you realised, worked out that we had a triplet pregnancy. So which
Oh God. What was your reaction when you found out you were having triplets?
it was joy. It was horror. It was. I guess I would describe it as being completely overwhelming. Yeah, there was so many decisions, and they always say don't make a decision in a crisis. And I guess we were in crisis mode for several weeks.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have a family history of multiple?
No, we don't.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was.
Because is it not a normal thing for there to be multiples in a family and then, it kind of skips this generation? Is that sort of the narrative around
Well, it can be,
multiples?
yeah. So particularly in the case of fraternal twin pregnancies, they tend to skip a generation. But this was an anomaly, like 1 in 70,000, which can happen.
Oh, Jo.
But if you think you've got more chance of having triplets, Larissa, than you have of winning Taslotto.
Oh my God.
So it's
Thank
not.
God I've shut shop.
So it's not. It is uncommon, but it's not as uncommon as a lot of other things we put our hope in. Yeah, yeah.
How was your pregnancy? So hang on, let's start. So your first two children, how were those pregnancies? Were
They
they
were good.
They were
They
good?
were both uneventful pregnancies, uncomplicated, and both born at term at normal vaginal deliveries. The triplet pregnancy was also uncomplicated, but I was monitored a lot more
Okay.
just because of the risk of intrauterine growth problems and babies being happy, essentially. Yeah.
Oh
So
my God, it would have been squishy in there.
it was pretty squishy. It was
How
pretty
how did
squishy.
you feel physically carrying triplets? Like,
Well, do you know, when I first found out at about 12 weeks I had a scan. Up until that point, everything about the pregnancy had been different, and I was really hoping that it was going to be a girl because it was so different.
oh, Jo.
And I hadn't had any morning sickness, and my shape was different. I was still wearing my normal clothes, normal jeans, and I came out of that scan feeling very nauseated and very sick. But look, the rest of the pregnancy was uneventful. It's just that the size, I was a full-term size by 24 weeks and couldn't fit into my usual maternity clothes because the shape was quite different. And it was hard getting into a car. It was all those movement kind of mobility things were quite tricky.
My God. Did you plan for birth? Obviously, there was a lot
Yeah, so we
planning
had
with
so I had discussions with my obstetrician, and we both decided that it would be good to have a cesarean, but to go as long as I could in that pregnancy. So that was the plan. We knew that it would be a cesarean
Mm.
and that would occur, as far down the track as I got.
Mm. Okay. Um, okay, so did your expectations align with your reality? So let's jump to your postpartum
Yes.
with the triplet.
Yes.
Well, first of all, how was the birth with the triplets?
It was a cesarean under a spinal anaesthetic, and it was a big relief to me physically to have them. I want to say removed, but I shouldn't say removed. Birthed. It was a big relief. And the post-op recovery was uneventful. It was fine. I think in those early days when you've had a baby, you have a different kind of tiredness. Your hormones have kicked in. Your pregnancy hormones are dropping, and you find this adrenaline that kind of keeps you going. So you're still tired, but it's a different kind of tired. I think most women having had a baby would say that.
Yeah.
There's something that keeps you going. Which is different to pre-birth. So the post-op was fine. I guess I thought I was a bit cocky, and I thought being a midwife, it would all be cool, and there'd be just go with the flow.
It's always the way, isn't it?
And so I started off breastfeeding all of them, and that kind of worked for 10 days. And then we worked out that one of them wasn't keen on being breastfed, so she was formula fed, which kind of made it a little bit easier in terms of rotating breasts.
Yeah.
But we were kind of all over the place with feeding and waking, and we were just being responsive to the baby's needs, to our peril.
I feel like it's like, where do I start with all the questions of time and managing essentially 5 children at that time,
Yeah.
let alone managing 3 newborns.
Yeah.
Like, the first thing I think of is, how did you feed triplets?
So 2 were breastfed every on demand. It was all demand feeding. So, and 1 was bottle fed. So I would just rotate, feed each baby on a separate side. And we had a whiteboard in our laundry. And it was so ridiculous when I think about it, because we had this whiteboard with feeds, nappies, dirty nappies, soiled nappies, wet nappies, sorry, and what time and who had what, and it just all went. It was crazy. It was just because we couldn't follow the whiteboard. We were too tired to record anything. So it was kind of a
Seemed like a good idea.
It seemed like a good idea at the time. Yeah, we were very lucky. I had an aunt who lived in Sydney, and we arranged for her to come down. She stayed for a month. I came home from hospital, and so she did a lot of baby care and helped with the boys. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So because by the time you had the triplets, how old were the other?
They were 8 and 5, and the 5-year-old was just about to start school. So they were born in November. And so we had the summer holiday bit, uh, where our air conditioning suddenly didn't work on 40-degree days,
God.
and we had to wait several weeks for it to be fixed. So that
Oh
was a
my
bit of a
goodness.
that was a big drama for that summer. That was the biggest drama, actually. Yeah.
What did your postpartum recovery look like? Or was it a conscious thing that you were thinking about, your postpartum
In
with the triplets?
in terms of my body and getting back to
Yeah.
normal, yeah. So yeah, it was. I um, returned to exercise within 6 weeks, and I used to go to the gym at 5 in the morning. I'd get up at 5 and go, and a couple of days or 3 days a week. Yeah.
Do you think you did that for your own mental health
Yeah.
and sort of that
Yeah.
I just need
Time
time by
alone.
myself?
Time alone. Yeah. Absolutely. And I didn't have to get them up and get them dressed and get them changed and fed. I could just
It was
sneak
one
out of the
less
house.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was fairly, I mean, it was pretty active with 5 kids anyway, looking after the babies and then the 2 at school. And it was really actually it was challenging on a whole lot of fronts. I guess really super challenging for the older 2. Mm.
Yeah, because in terms of time,
Yeah. So in terms of time, and Nick used to finish school in those days. The preppies finished an hour earlier for first term
um,
every day. So that was a
oh,
big challenge. Uh, and the prams were, I mean, we're talking the olden days now. So the prams were not
course.
as wonderful as they are now. But I hired a big box, like it was essentially a pram on a box, a box on wheels to from the multiple births. So I hired that and I used to wheel that up with the babies up to school
Wow.
because that was easier than getting them in the car and getting them out again.
Absolutely.
And I
Yeah.
couldn't fit the pram in the car.
Oh my God. The logistics around this,
Yeah.
I'm even overwhelmed talking about it. Like,
Yeah.
do you look back at that time and have those thoughts of like, how did I do that?
Yes. Yes.
I,
And I,
yeah,
and talking about it today brings up things I hadn't remembered.
of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course. Um, okay, so what did your support network look like?
Oh, so it was a bit piecemeal. Uh, my husband and I had each other, and very much. I mean, he was working full time, but it was very much a tag team effort, and he, we were always. It was a team effort at night, overnight. It was a team effort all the time, and so we had each other. We had very limited family support. We had a couple of wonderful friends who did meals for about a year. They did one meal a week,
Wow.
and that was amazing. They'd just drop it off at the door and go. That I didn't have
How
to
amazing.
entertain them or do anything.
Yeah.
And we had a wonderful woman called Mary who came in through. I think she came through the multiple births. She'd put out there's a little notice in one of their newsletters saying that there was a lady looking to help with a family who needed some help. And I rang them up and said, "Oh, would you be interested?" And she came and met us. And she was she'd moved back to Melbourne from Hong Kong or Singapore, I think, and she'd been an expat wife, and was looking for things, some good way to spend her time.
Time. Yeah.
And she came in. I can't actually remember how often. I think it was 3, maybe 4 afternoons a week
Okay.
for a few hours after school. And she would help, she'd look after the babies so I could spend time with the other 2 doing
Yeah.
homework. And she'd help with bath time and meal prep and feeding. And she was just there. And she was amazing. She was amazing.
Multiple births as a resource.
Yeah.
How fundamental was that to that whole period for you?
So the Multiple Births Association,
Mm.
yeah, it's more a or at that time, I don't know what it is now. At that time, it was more mums. It was more information sharing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I met a mum with triplets locally and her triplets were about 3 when I met her, and I was pregnant. And she gave me lots of information. So it's
Okay.
kind of like that information sharing. And they did have a pram hire kind of depository thing.
Yeah.
But there was no there's no hands-on assistance from it's a voluntary,
Yeah.
like a mother's group, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think were your biggest? I mean, there were obviously lots of challenges, Joe, but what is the standout challenge that you think you faced with the triplets, or just that period of time? Not even necessarily specifically with the triplets, but
Yeah.
just that whole period of time.
Sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep. Like any new mum. And we kind of thought we'd be okay because we just let them all do their thing. But in fact, they were running the house with being up all the time. You know, we're up for. We would have had no longer than half an hour's sleep at a time per night, and it would have been a maximum of 2 hours per night. And we survived like that for about 6 months.
Oh, it kind of makes me sick just thinking about it.
And so I think sleep was the biggest challenge, getting enough rest, because the rest of it's busy and the rest of it's, it's go, go, go. And you've got to be organised and, everything just happens. But it's really hard to do if you've not had sleep. Sleep is the biggest thing, I
Absolutely.
think.
Yeah.
I would say that for all new mums.
Yeah, definitely. Did you seek any professional support
Yes.
through that time?
Yes. So the plan was for me I was on mat leave. So the plan was for me to go back to work when they were 6 months old. And when they were about 5 months, I just knew that was not going to be possible unless they started sleeping. So I put my name down for the O'Connell Centre in Canterbury and was told there was a 6-week waiting list.
For those that don't know, because I'm not sure if the O'Connell Centre is
I'm not sure whether it's still
around,
but
or not.
it's like a mother-baby
Yeah.
unit for sleep program.
Yeah.
So I did a whole ring around, and I found that Mitcham Private ran a mother-baby sleep program. I'm not sure what the formal name was. So we went in there, and they wanted the other 2 children to come, which wasn't feasible. I just went in with the
No.
triplets, and we did their quick little sleep program. And on night 4, they were sleeping through.
Oh my goodness.
Sleeping through.
Got to think, what are they putting in there? In something.
So it was just introducing the dream feed and just and a routine. So as I said, we were all over the place because I was just going to let them do what they needed to do. But really, with multiples, you need to have them on the same schedule.
Yeah.
So if one wakes, wake them all up, and if
Right.
one's feeding, feed them all. And so it was that getting them into a schedule and the dream feed and going overnight was wonderful. And we really didn't look back in terms of sleep
Wow.
after that.
Was that sort of the only professional support you sought
Yeah.
through that period?
Yeah.
How did the impact of the ongoing postpartum recovery what did that look like at the time for you? Was it like I'm just feeling like when I think about you in this period, like it must have just, did you think, oh my God, when is this going to end? Or is it just going to be like this
Forever.
forever?
Well, I always had these milestones that, moving from the bassinet to the cot,
Mm.
moving from uh, the capsule to the car seat, them being able to put their own belt on or take it off, pram to stroller. Everything was a milestone.
Yeah.
And I kind of look back and think I probably wished the time away, which is terrible. But
I hear
but,
you on that.
but everything was a
Yeah.
milestone. And so things always change and things get better.
Yeah.
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 And each new phase brings a new challenge, really, doesn't it? That
Absolutely.
you can't focus on, but you just need things. You just need things to keep moving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always had in my mind, oh, it will be so good once the kids are like independent to do like, and we can go on holidays and not have to take everything, and they've got their own suit. Like they were all the milestones. And now I get to that point and I'm like, oh, it's just it's a different form of need.
It is. It is.
Like once you're a mum,
They always
you're a
need
mum.
you. Yeah.
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 It just, that need just changes.
Yeah.
And the touch points
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. And you just get different windows of opportunity, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were some of the unique joys you experienced raising the triplets?
Oh, look, they were so there are so many. There are so many, and we have so many photos and videos of them.
Good.
And they were really, they were just so joyful, and I really wish I wasn't so tired and I could have enjoyed it more at the time. But I remember them lying on the carpet on a little baby mat and holding hands, the three of them.
Stop it.
And it was so, it was so cute. Because they'd always, I guess, they've always had each other in utero and outside. It was just them. They knew no different. But holding hands on that mat is an enduring memory.
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful.
How are they similar now? Like, are they quite close?
Yeah, they are very close, the girls particularly. So they're best friends, best enemies. But, they're very, very close. Yeah, which is lovely.
How old are they now?
They're 26.
Wow.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. Goes quickly.
Yeah.
Goes
wow.
quickly.
Okay. What advice would you give to parents for someone that's listening now that is expecting multiples, be it 2 or 3?
Oh.
What would be your advice?
So scheduling would be
Okay.
the biggest thing. Making sure that that
There is a routine.
there is a routine, and babies love routine. When, as a midwife, if you've got one baby, then feed on demand and just take your cues from the baby. And when you've got multiples, you've just got to pull that in a little bit, I suppose. It's really important to have them both in the same routine within reason, and that makes life a lot easier. Yeah. Sleep is a hard one, and if we weren't in a position to do this, but I did know people who had night nannies.
Oh, yeah.
Which is super, super expensive. And it'd be really good if that was a funded thing.
That's going to be my next question.
Yeah.
What needs to change? What do you think that needs to change in the current postpartum care space?
Yeah. I think so. Look, I'm not sure what is happening now. When we had our babies, quads would qualify for a night nanny. and the government would or local government would pay for a night nanny for a period of time. In New Zealand at that time, anyone with twins or triplets had a night nanny for up to a year, I believe.
Oh,
It's all anecdotal.
Yeah, I know there is something from memory. I'm sure there is something I have heard of something for multiples here in Vic.
I think that if, early intervention
Yeah.
in terms of getting some sleep would be less of a burden on the health dollar.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the other thing that would be really good is promotion and letting people know that there are sleep programs out there and that you don't necessarily need private health insurance to access that or waiting lists, and probably planning for it is a really good thing.
Yeah.
I think even if you've got a newborn and you're worried about that sleeping aspect or being able to manage unlimited sleep, then it's probably worth trying to find out what there is available in case you need it.
It's such a big topic. I know we're going to be doing a whole series on sleep because, it's also such a controversial topic as well, because so many people have so many different theories on sleep and what should be done, what shouldn't be done. But I am a firm believer in everyone's story and situation is different.
Yeah.
And it requires different forms of education, advice, knowledge, and it can look different for everybody, like a lot in this space. But sleep and I think feeding is not so much as controversial or weighted as much anymore as I feel like sleep is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with you.
I feel like sleep deprivation is probably one of the worst forms of torture.
That's why they use it as a torture tactic.
Yeah.
Because it can make you go crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah. And the best chance of success is being able to tackle these things with
As
a bit
a
of sleep behind you.
preventative. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Thank you so much, Jo. It's been beautiful to chat with you. We're going to chat again on another episode. But thank you again.
No problem. Thanks, Larissa.
This podcast represents the opinions of our hosts and their guest speakers. Views and opinions expressed in the podcast are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and content here should not be taken as medical or professional advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any personal recommendations and medical care. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate based on the best available information at the time of recording, we welcome any comments, suggestions or feedback via our website contact form, home.com.au/contact. Names and details of personal experiences may have been changed to allow for anonymity and privacy. To join the conversation, join us on social media at Home Postpartum.